On November 26, 2021, my good friend Max published a video exposing the colossal pedo ring that is IMVU, where he uncovered one particularly inveterate child predator known in-game as Pablo Sunny, a pedophile with an extensive history of grooming multiple teenage girls. And to no one's surprise, YouTube tore it down like none of it ever happened. The fickle thing about it, though, is that the video was cut and censored in accordance with the community guidelines, manually reviewed by your staff in order for the family-friendly shell that remained to be available on your platform, even if age-restricted. I myself have personally seen the entire video, and there is not one timestamp you can find that does anything even remotely illicit, especially compared to the categorical obscenities that already plague YouTube. And for what? Because of the bare ass of a virtual character. Is this a joke? Max documenting this formerly unknown behavior in a 90-minute documentary about the horrors of pedophilia and child sexual abuse in IMVU is somehow sexually gratifying to you? Everything was perfectly fine for the first half-fucking-million people who watched it, but the very second Team YouTube watches it. Interesting. We tried resolving it with you peacefully, but you were unwilling to budge like the apologist you allegedly are. And Max has had enough.
Just fucking kidding. Whether it's intentional or not, you endlessly punish those of us who create content in response to injustice, speaking up for victims like children and pursuing the perpetrators like pedophiles. It is volatile, intense, disturbing, upsetting, raw, and real. Because that is the subject matter it is covering, and that is the way it should be covered. As my audience, many of whom are CSA survivors, have instructed me to do. But no matter how vital the video may be to them, you take down our shit and continue to help absolutely no one besides the evil people we are trying to expose, and the survivors continue to scream in agonizing silence. But maybe that's the way you like it. I will let my colleagues take a more measured and balanced approach to this discussion. And despite all of the conflicting personalities you're about to see, you'll notice that there's one thing that does bring us all together. We don't like pedophiles. Something you don't seem to see eye to eye with us on YouTube.
YouTube messes with me all the time. I remember one time I got 3 strikes, they banned me. I appealed the ban, I said, hey, this is unfair, and they said nope, they rejected my appeal. I've learned a long time ago you simply cannot trust Google. They still delete my videos to this day. And I really hate saying it, but I don't have pride in YouTube anymore. The amount of censorship is completely disheartening, especially when people need to see this content.
If there's something that the internet has shown us time and time again in regards to independent investigations, it's that the average person can notice something that an investigator might miss the first or second time. And as such, investigative content should really be encouraged.
YouTube is clearly delusional at this point, censoring us all and blatantly ignoring the good that comes from heavily investigated content. The awareness that spreads from such videos are immense. Is that not a good thing though? It honestly feels like YouTube is trying to protect these up people, and that's not okay. This is why we've got to step in.
Personally, I don't think YouTube ever cared about any of us. They only care if you're one of their poster childs, but most importantly, you have to be incredibly ad-friendly. Even 100% innocent channels are getting completely destroyed. I've dealt with it myself multiple times.
90% of the issues with YouTube could be resolved if Google just hired a team of real people to look over and see what's actually being done than what's just being reported. On YouTube, you're basically guilty until proven innocent. And people know this. My Dan Schneider video got 2 takedown requests, but I know of other smaller YouTubers who have talked about the whole Dan Schneider thing, and their shit got taken down because they were small channels and because they couldn't fight back.
You know, YouTube was actually a place for people to create back in the day. I mean, actually hire people to review and moderate videos, not auto-moderated robots. You know, I don't need like fucking R2-D2 over here telling me that my info or any other creator's info isn't valuable to a cause when there's actual victims on the line.
Every single day we can see exploitative content trending on YouTube. Content such as family channel content that takes advantage of children. On the other hand, we have investigative content that is not only pushed back by the algorithm, not only demonetized, but actively hidden from subscribers who signed up to see that content. And this is a problem.
It feels like YouTube is constantly punishing the wrong people on its platform. I mean, this is something that I experienced with my fake animal rescue investigation, when all of a sudden my video started getting age restrictions, and then I started to receive community guideline warnings, which basically told me that if I kept making that content, then YouTube would have removed my channel. And what made it so much more frustrating was the fact that these channels that I was exposing just continued on fully monetized and not receiving any form of punishment. Out of all those people that I exposed, the first person to get punished was me. But as upsetting as that situation was, what's happening here with Max's video is something that I find even more concerning. I mean, age restriction is one thing, but to have your video removed completely with no justification and with no chance to appeal it is something that shouldn't happen under any circumstances. I mean, it really is a shame because those who are on here exposing predators and doing so in a fair and responsible way, just like Max was, deserve to have a platform here and deserve to be celebrated for the work they're doing. And yet all too often it's YouTube who's taking action against these creators. And when they do that, they are not only actively siding with these predators, but they are actively protecting them as well.
YouTube likes to put on this front that they care about their creators, when anybody who's worked in the platform knows it's complete bullshit. The only thing they care about is making money. And if you're seen as a little bit unmarketable or a little bit edgy, you're completely screwed. Doesn't matter if you actually are. The thought of you maybe being that is enough to get you completely screwed. And so what ends up happening is they end up censoring these really important things, like people raising awareness or people investigating things or trying to expose things. They end up censoring them because they're a little bit dark. Imagine outlets not publishing stories or exposés or really hard-hitting things because the subject matter was sensitive. It's just so ridiculous to think about. YouTube pretends to care about their creators when they don't.
The overall problem with YouTube is that it cares more for its public appearance than it does for those who actually make the platform work. Content creators, especially those who focus on investigative reporting, are very often either heavily censored or flat out removed from the website if we, for lack of a better words, get too loud. If we know our place and don't shine a light on the elephant in the room, we are safe. But if we actually do our job, then we are punished.
You know, when we look at YouTube's policies, some of the content that I was making specifically did cover upon people that were actually predatory towards underage people on the internet. And that's a big problem. It's a reality. Whether you go on YouTube, whether you go on Facebook, whether you go on Discord, whether you go on any platform, there's always creepy adults who are willing to use their power and advantage to overpower actual underage individuals. And that's disgusting, and it's actually really sick. And the problem that we have on YouTube is even if you follow all the rules and all the guidelines and you blur every single thing imaginable, you're still potentially facing some level of a privacy guideline strike. And I don't know how it gets handled. Sometimes they go through, sometimes they don't. But even if you attempt to follow every single rule, it seems as though that many of these sites tend to favor and protect a lot of these individuals, even if it is unintentionally. Hell, just look at some of these harassment guidelines. If you even leak out or potentially mention somebody else, you could, it's such a vague terms of service that who knows? Somebody may potentially take advantage of it and use it to strike your channel. It feels as though every time you actually try to bring light to something disgusting like this and have it potentially investigated and shut down, you're the bad guy, okay? So really, it restricts a lot of people from putting their effort into it. And unfortunately, it feels as though the system is geared against people trying to do actual good, and it seems like the people who are actually the malicious and fucked up people in nature are the ones that may unintentionally get protected with all these new guidelines and privacy issues and all that. But generally, that's the way that I feel about it. I literally had to stop making content because it feels like I was the one being targeted by the lords above, if you will.
I am an investigative journalist, and if YouTube takes that away from me, how am I going to be able to take care of my cat? You'd be taking food out of the mouths of hardworking individuals and putting it into the mouths of pedophiles.
YouTube has never really given a shit about investigative journalism content. I think that's really a given. While YouTube in recent years has tried to be a squeaky clean company that not many people could be offended by, investigative journalism inherently goes into topics that are controversial or require a lot of depth to get into. It doesn't really matter if these investigative pieces could actually help real law enforcement with actual crimes, which is why some small investigative journalism channels are being taken down, because YouTube thinks people won't notice. We need to show them that we do, and that if they continue to do it, it's going to look bad on them as a company for all of us.
What worries me about the state of YouTube isn't just how it seems to prioritize mainstream media over investigative journalism or independent journalism, but also how it takes these concepts that it uses to soft censor commentators and it applies it to the rest of YouTube. Just as a film analyst and reviewer myself, there's a lot of censoring that I have to do on my own channel. I love the platform of YouTube, but I don't feel like it supports my own free speech, and I think that a lot of discussions are stifled because we creators feel like there are just things that we cannot talk about. This is how we've been conditioned.
I definitely don't think it's great that YouTube sometimes removes content that exposes pedophiles and animal abusers. I understand that YouTube has strict advertisement guidelines, but a lot of dark content creators and investigative channels are truly facing negative repercussions. Hopefully YouTube is willing to work on this sensitive issue and make changes that are better for the community.
My name is Jay Boston. I've been a voice actor for Mamamax for a couple of years at this point. With the takedown of his most recent video, you can't really help but begin to theorize that although the method of delivery is unique, it still acts as this campaign of awareness against individuals on the internet that are engaging in felonious acts such as pedophilia and grooming. And with YouTube's consistent censorship and suppression of Max, you can't help but ask the question, why?
As a creator who tries to bring more attention to sensitive and dark subjects in the online realm, I also feel neglected and let down by YouTube. Max is one of many creators on the platform that supports YouTube in their quest to fight against the exploit of minors. YouTube is doing themselves no favor by striking and deleting content, exposing the same problem they are trying to fix. Max's videos contain months of work to collect as much evidence as possible. YouTube thanks him by making his life as hard as possible by not communicating, deleting his videos, and striking his channel.
So Mamamax, he hit me up and he's like, look, I'm doing this video, do you want to be a part of it? And I thought, you know what, actually I do, because he's right in what he's saying. With his work, obviously it's investigations into very dark territory, people that are abusing kids. It's very important to put that out there and show the world what's going on. You would think if YouTube was staying to its original ethos, that YouTube would be a great place to do that, show the world where otherwise this kind of information might not get out there. Now what they're doing is they're trying to censor stuff that is kind of a little bit dark, a little bit edgy, because it doesn't really line up with their advertisers. So the same thing has happened to me with my platform, Popular Front, Independent Conflict Reporting. We go to wars, we show the world what is going on, and it's completely independent. Our whole channel has been demonetized. They've put some of our documentaries up behind this weird warning saying that the content is considered offensive. Like, what is offensive about documenting war crimes? Okay, it might not be palatable for your advertisers, but it's very important work. It needs to be out there. So I think what Mamamax is saying is definitely right. YouTube needs to stop doing this, or they need to really be honest about what it is. Do they just want content that is good for their advertisers, that they can say, yeah, this is all nicey, nanny state type stuff? Or do they want to stick to the original plan of, yeah, anyone can use this platform to kind of put information out there? I don't know, it's a real problem, and I'm glad Mamamax is drawing attention to it. Hopefully YouTube will listen. I doubt they will, but who knows.
You know, YouTube likes to pride themselves on being this big platform where any creator can make it for any kind of genre they want to, but At the end of the day, it's like if you're going to do any kind of investigative journalism, you're going to have a rough time. Because when it comes down to it, the big corporations, they have way more leeway in what they can cover compared to you. I've had videos that have been age restricted and demonetized because of the topics I'm talking about, but then you see the mainstream news where their clips are on the trending front page and they're talking about that same thing. And that shit's fucked up, honestly. That shit really pisses me off. Because it's like, why are they giving all this leeway to the big corporations, but then when it comes down to the smaller creators that make up the entire platform, oh, they're not allowed to talk about it, you know?
YouTube, you don't need to protect pedophiles, you don't need to protect animal abusers. These are bad people. Society has deemed them as bad people. We are allowed to bully them. YouTube, please let us bully bad people. Censorship bad, pedophiles bad, animal abusers bad. That's my take.
We do what we do to alert the public, warn the innocent, spread the word. But YouTube seems to punish the heroes and reward the villains cowering behind their screens. Whose side are you on, YouTube?
YouTube taking down this kind of content reminds me of what a lot of people refer to as toxic positivity, pretending that everything is fine and avoiding the problem head on. They've also started doing this with basic criticism on the platform, such as removing dislikes and making it a lot harder to comment on mobile, which coincidentally is the device most people use when engaging with their site. When we lose the ability to critique, we lose the ability to improve.
Yeah, I think what's given most people, you know, the idea, and me included, that YouTube doesn't really care so much is that it keeps moving the goalposts of what it wants on the site and what's acceptable nowadays. You know, it seems that like what you put up on a Monday will get you in the crapper by Friday.
It's hard being a commentator or an investigative creator on the platform of YouTube a lot of the time, because I think, to be honest, YouTube have made it pretty clear they're not really big fans of our presence, and honestly they just would like the world without the drama. But at the end of the day, when people are being exploited, I think there needs to be a point where creators exist, and I think we do a pretty good job in that regard. It's just YouTube don't really want us there to do it.
If we weren't able to investigate things like Chris Hansen, Onision, EDP, a lot of the very positive impacts would just be void. They wouldn't even exist, because a lot of this stuff just gets swept along to the wayside. Now, I know that there's some people who do take advantage of this system, but I genuinely believe that the good outweighs the bad. And if we're no longer able to investigate stuff like this, it's going to be a net loss for the entire community.
Easily the most frustrating thing for me personally has been issues with YouTube's privacy complaint system. YouTube has a system in place to allow private figures to request retractions on public YouTube videos if they feel information about them, like their identity, has been compromised by that video. Information that deserves to be private. In theory, this seems like a good idea, but in practice, this allows some bad actors to silence criticism. About half a year ago, I posted a video about an individual who I would love to name, who spent his time being a sex pest in people's messages by, well, there's really no way to put this nicely, sending pictures of himself wearing a diaper in women's DMs. So, I posted a 17-minute breakdown of who he is. Keep in mind, I censored all of his private info for his own safety, while still telling the story accurately. He created his own thread on gossip forums in order to humiliate himself, and even posted his full name and address. I merely talked about the fact that he did this, and was punished. YouTube allowed this person to abuse the privacy system multiple times to get the video taken down, but I can't help but find it funny that YouTube took down my video claiming that I was engaging in violating this guy's privacy and later harassing him when he was the one who brought it all on himself in the first place, and intentionally. Embarrassing. I've been Turkey Tom. Bye.
It pains me to say YouTube has garnered a reputation for leaving their own creators in the dark when it comes to imposing important rules and regulations. Guidelines against harassment are a good thing, but how are investigative creators meant to follow them when the language used is so intentionally vague? I'm tired of pouring hours of work into a video only for it to be demonetized and age restricted with little to no helpful explanation. How are we supposed to know what to avoid if we don't know what we're doing wrong?
YouTube has slowly been more restrictive in terms of content creators, trying to tell stories about actors within communities. Content is the hardest to deal with, as a lot of what might be discussed has to be censored. For example, a History Channel might want to cover World War II, but to absolutely make sure they get that green mark, they might have to change a few things in the wording. Such as, the main bad guy of the Second Big War unalived himself when he lost. And this becomes a lot harder for channels that cover recent awful individuals that commit acts like and even and with YouTube's current system, the person being covered, if still out there, has an easier time taking down the video even if it has evidence, and the YouTuber is careful with wording as to not end up in court when covering the story.
It is very unfortunate that as the clock ticks and YouTube grows older, exchanging from hand to hand, they continue to suppress these same creators that helped legitimize their website in the first place, while they let corporations run around and do whatever they want. As time goes on, Team YouTube ceases to surprise with their pompous, unapologetic, hypocritical attitude. In the direction we are heading now, it becomes clear with each passing terrible update, unfair strike, and sketchy termination that this website in the eyes of Team YouTube has nothing to do with creativity, independent creators, and especially you.
I could not agree more, my friends, but I'm worried that all of your wise words will go to waste if no one sees this. So let's all go ahead and forcefully drag everyone down with us, starting with the following people. Susan Wojcicki. Stop fucking lying to us every time you have to give a statement in response to videos like mine. All these broken promises you've made that never come into fruition, all of these incessant changes that no one ever asked for or wanted, take some goddamn accountability. We are so sick of seeing the malicious and deceitful words you and your company repeatedly propagate. Either do something good for this site once in your fruitless life, or step the fuck down. Philip DeFranco. Remember when you and your team ignored us last time during the whole Answer Us PedoTube thing because you were too busy talking about some stupid drama? I know I'm not as famous as you would like, but how about you do the right thing this time and fucking say something? I know you're on break, so it would mean even more to me for you to actually do something this time around. Ethan Klein. I was told you talked to someone at YouTube for me last time. Thank you so much for that. I know you're busy dealing with important shit, but I'm gonna ask that you take a minute to speak to YouTube again for me. Privately is fine. Publicly would be better. Follow me back if you want details. Keemstar. You are always my fucking man when it comes to this shit. As a loving father, I know you won't let me down. Scarce. Thanks so much for covering my story last time, brother. I desperately call upon you for help once again. It would mean the world to me. Charlie, I look up to you because you're a good man. You stand up for what's right and speak out in defense of all of us smaller than you. But it is my regret to inform you that your video talking with the CEO of YouTube has aged like milk. So I'm going to kindly ask for your help once again. Chris Hansen. People kept telling me not to talk to you, but you were one of the first of us. And although you screwed the fucking pooch, I'm willing to forgive you if you speak up for us. I know you've got some connections that Susan can't ignore. I tried reaching out to you, but you ignored me. So now my audience will do it for me. Shane Dawson. I know you've done a lot of fucked up shit in the past and you don't really deserve everyone's forgiveness. But since you were one of the biggest creators in our genre, standing up for what's right instead of wasting time on haunted houses would finally make you look good to the public once again. This is your chance to redeem yourself. Don't squander it. Corpse. I know you have nothing to do with this, but with all of your power, influence and the favor you owe me. I just couldn't help myself. So, remember when you reached out after years of not speaking to me while I was at the hospital tending to my sick girlfriend, and you kept trying to rush me home to do you a huge favor, and then you threw me under the bus for something you did, and at the same time acted like you were taking full responsibility for it. But I let you do it because I thought you were going to be my friend like you used to be, and then you stopped talking to me immediately after you were done using me. Yeah. So, how about you do me the fucking favor this time and talk about something besides yourself for once? It will give you a good look. I promise. Oh yes. If I have to start shit with every influencer in this goddamned planet just to make anyone give even a slight fuck, so be it. I'd rather have the whole world hate me than ever hear a child's voice being silenced again. If anyone wants to react to this video, my content is free for you to make as much money off of it in whatever way you wish. I do not give a shit. Bad press, good press. I just want to finally see some justice done for the victims in my videos. So, again, I'm gonna have to upset all of my fellow creators and make a goddamn disaster out of you, YouTube, because you never do anything until we start squeezing your balls. And this is the part where you come in, children. The links are in the description. I kindly ask you to come with me to make a fucking mess for the second time. I want you to pace this bitch until the world is nauseous from looking at it. I want you to drown out every trending topic so that even something like Spider-Man looks like a microscopic speck of dust compared to us. And tonight, YouTube will choose. Let die the pedophiles they love, or suffer the little children. And by the end of the night,